first one being we got the quarterback breakout of the season. There was many candidates. I almost went with Trevor Lawrence, could have went with Lamar Jackson, but in the end, I went with Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert was the talk of the town heading into the last season. A lot of people were high on the Chargers, including myself, but it just wasn't the season that we all hoped for Justin Herbert. But I do have faith in this Chargers offense. They added Quentin Johnson through the NFL draft. They added Kellen Moore, a guy that I think is going to spread out the passing game here. I do think that Mike Williams and Keenan Allen will both be healthy. That was really what tore down this Chargers passing game. That's why Austin Eckler had such a great season last year. Austin Eckler was the number one receiving guy for Justin Herbert last season. I think that's ultimately going to change. I do still think that Austin Eckler is definitely going to be one of a viable fantasy running back. But Justin Herbert and Kellen Moore is going to spread the football more. It would not shock me if he's the leading passer right up there with Patrick Mahomes. I think that this is going to be one of the pass-heavy offenses, especially with the top two guys being healthy and adding a guy like Quentin Johnson this season. So that is my quarterback breakout. Let's go on now to the running back breakout. This is a guy that I've been talking about for many, many months, ever since we started the Fantasy Football Corner. And that is a guy I think is going to be unleashed this season. No more Ezekiel Elliott stealing so many carries from him. I think that if you look at the depth chart behind him, Deuce Vaughn, I know that Deuce Vaughn has been having a really good preseason, but I don't think that he's going to be much of a threat for Tony Pollard. I think that Tony Pollard is going to be a three-down back for Dallas. And it's not like Dallas is a bad team. I know that we were just talking about Dak Prescott. I think he's a viable quarterback. They did add Brandon Cooks into that offense. So there's going to be more guys taking, the top quarterbacks off of him. So, look at Tony Pollard. His 40-yard dash was a 4.52, and I think that he's shown his elusive speed. Tony Pollard is one of the best pass-catching backs, and especially in PPR. I think that right now ESPN has him ranked as the RB6. I also had him as the RB6. It will not shock me if he finishes in the top three. I think that there's really no competition around him. And you really look at the fantasy football landscape for running backs, there's not really many of those bell cow guys anymore. I feel like Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, Tony Pollard is about only ones there. So he's pretty much a dual threat. He can definitely be an effective rusher and also be an effective pass catching back out of the backfield. So I'm all in on Tony Pollard this season. Another guy I'm all in on is the New Orleans Saints lead wide receiver, and that is Chris Olave. Chris Olave, we saw at the beginning of the Fantasy Corner that he was going in round 5, but now that a lot of people either been watching the show or know that Chris Olave coming off a really good rookie season. That rookie season, he only missed 2 games. If he doesn't miss those 2 games, he wins Rookie of the Year. Garrett Wilson ended up winning that award, but the quarterback upgrade is there. Last year they were dealing with a quarterback carousel between Jameis Winston. Winston played like 1 or 2 games and then got hurt. And then we saw Andy Dalton. Now they have Derek Carr. You always saw the connection in game number 1. I think that a lot of people are going to focus on Michael Thomas and Chris Olave. Is this fully going to be his fully healthy season? Even with a fully healthy Michael Thomas, I do think that there's enough target share for Chris Olave, but say Michael Thomas goes down, Chris Olave ultimately shoots up. And, looking outside of that, Rashid Shaheed is also another guy. But I just feel like Derek Carr's favorite target is going to be Chris Olave. There really isn't many other pass catchers, too. I do think that Chris Olave, with Alvin Kamara being out for the first 3 weeks, I think that Olave, look at the Saints schedule to start. It's one of the most easiest schedules in the NFL. I know it's one of the easiest, but it can also be challenging too. So I think that Chris Olave, there's really not many guys around him that can really steal his targets. So I think that Chris Olave, if you see his receiving touchdowns right now, I think that he gets to 10. I think that this is going to be an insane season for Chris Olave. There's a lot of other wide receivers that I really like, but I think that the value getting Chris Olave in round number 3 is just too hard to pass on. Now let's go on to the tight end before we get to a bonus breakout. My favorite tight end this season look at is Darren Waller. Waller had an upgrade this offseason, going from a Raiders offense that stunk it up last year to now the New York Giants offense. I think that's going to be one of the most underrated offenses in the league heading into this season. You look at the pass catchers around him, not really many guys. Isaiah Hodges, Jalen Hyde, I think is going to be the wide receiver one. But if you're really looking for a wide receiver one, I think that Darren Waller is going to be that guy for you. It just feels like he's going to get most of the targets. Would not surprise me if Waller finishes as the most targets on this team. You have Saquon coming out of the backfield. Saquon will do his fair share, but there's just not really many wide receivers. We haven't really seen a wide receiver step up since the Odell Beckham days of the New York Giants. So I think that Darren Waller, he was dealing with some injuries in the past 2 years. We haven't really seen that breakout season since 2019. So it just feels like he's back fully healthy. I think that Darren Waller, with an offense that doesn't really have that go-to pass weapon, I think that Daniel Jones is going to look to him. And if you want to look at the projected 4.2, I think that's an easy over. I think that he gets 5 or 6 touchdowns this season and gets a lot of targets and a lot of he's going to be a PPR machine. I think that everyone wants to talk about Kelsey, but I think that Darren Waller, I think he's going to finish as the number 3 tight end right behind Andrews and Kelsey this season. So let's get into one more bonus breakout, and we're going to go to the wide receiver position. Jahan Dotson. You're really looking at the Commanders' offense right now. Terry McLaurin is dealing with a turf toe injury. There's some question marks of whether or not he's going to be available for the Commanders' Week 1 game. We do know the starting quarterback is going to be Sam Howell. We've been going through the quarterback carousel here in Washington, which feels like quite some time. But Sam Howell, look at his tape from North Carolina. He's been doing really good in the preseason. So very similar to Darren Waller's situation in New York. Jahan, you look at the other wide receivers, Curtis Samuel, he's getting over age 30. Terry McLaurin, he's definitely going to be viable. Well, I think that Jahan Dotson is going to be the wide receiver one for the Washington Commanders. If you looked at every preseason game, Jahan Dotson scored a touchdown in 2 of them. So Sam Howell has looked to Jahan Dotson early and often. So I think that Dotson, if you're looking at any Commanders wide receiver, he is the one to get. So those are my top 5 breakouts for the corner this week. And then we're getting closer to the season, so we're going to get to some more starts and sit-ems.
So Tony Pollard finishing as RB1 at the end of the season. That's what I'm predicting here on this August 28th brisk summer evening. I think, like you mentioned, he's the bell cow now in Dallas. We saw what he could do last year, even with half his carries to Zeke. I think he's going to overtake CMC, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley. It's going to be the Tony Pollard show down there in Dallas.